Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the IdOMUSIC podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with manager and founder of Since the 80s, discussing managing 21 Savage, her knack for trend forecasting and marketing, and creating history with the new label Since the 80s. You're now tuned into the IdOMUSIC podcast, and I'm sitting down with manager and marketing extraordinaire, Kei Henderson. Kei opens doors.
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I can't complain.
Did I give you due justice on the title?
Kinda.
What else? What else should I say? Oh, Since the 80s.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
That's the most important piece.
Since the 80s, a new label that you have started or with Barry Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to get to that too. But first, I like to always start off with just, how's it going? What's going on? How you feeling?
Man, this has been a good week, but also a very stressful week. I've had my cousins in town from Knoxville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So I've been kind of like babysitting and, just showing them the ropes, going swimming, going to the movies.
How old are they? They look so young.
They are 7, about to be 8, and then I think 9, about to be 10.
Okay. Good age.
But yeah, a good age, but also is like very draining, very active. Yeah, like you got to really entertain kids.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty like low key. I like to just chill when I'm home.
Yeah,
and do nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to entertain the kids.
All day.
Yep.
I'm just like, yo, how do moms do this? Like,
listen.
I have so much respect now for single mothers, I will definitely say. Not that I didn't have any before, but like being in the shoes is just like, it's a whole nother job.
It really is. My sister has 3 daughters.
Oh, wow.
All very young. So it's a handful. But yeah, but that's good that you're able to hang out with family, spend some time with family. So I was actually wrong earlier. I'm happy I cleared that up. I thought you were born in Atlanta, but you've been raised here though, so you call Atlanta home. Right.
Yeah, I've been here since I was like 5 or 6 years old, from Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. And how has the city influenced your love and your hustle for the music business, if it has?
Atlanta, we've kind of been running stuff for now, like almost 20 plus years. And when I was growing up, like Atlanta was still the scene, even though we weren't as big outside of Atlanta, but I always knew that our culture and like everything that we had going on was something special, just even from Freaknik and like 112, just being around that era, BMF days and like the days of Outkast really coming up. Mm-hmm. Greg Street, who's still on the radio today, was like really like made it very clear that Atlanta just had a lot going on. So even as a kid, like growing up, going to like 5 Points, Underground, like just really being out, I knew that Atlanta had something special. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older and, started to travel and lived in different places, I saw that, okay, Atlanta really has been the hub for music for a very long time. So I think that, Atlanta's just a special place. And I think that it's special for several reasons, but we can kind of get into that later.
Yeah, I was going to ask though, like if someone were to ask you, like, describe the energy here in Atlanta, like, you hear artists feel more comfortable recording down here, creating here. Mm-hmm. Why is Atlanta the destination for specifically entertainment? I mean, we were talking about athletes training down here or being from here. And then, of course, music and film are huge.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just a great quality of life. Because especially when you go to places like New York and LA, like LA has a great quality of life, but it's not as much culture.
Exactly.
And it's not as much culture because there's not as many Black people. Mm-hmm. Because we're really the nucleus of what drives trends and what drives, energy. So Atlanta being a majority Black city is a part of the reason why we're so popular, just because, we drive the culture forward. And I think that we've been successful for so many years because there's not a lot to do in Atlanta, really, technically.
There really isn't.
Like when you go to LA and you go to New York, like you can be a tourist, you can get out, and you can really just walk the streets of New York and you've done more than what you can do in Atlanta. I think that a lot of the creativity in Atlanta comes from kids not having shit to do. That's true. Sitting at home and trying to figure out Fruity Loops in their mom's basement or in their mom's house on their mom's computer, and just having to be creative and learning to play instruments and playing outside. Like even back in the day, like we used to play outside
all the time.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, that was like a big thing.
Yeah, that was a big thing. And I think that just that sense of boredom created a lot of the creativity that we have in Atlanta.
What would you say, like, I mean, in comparison to where you're from? I know you spent, just your earlier years in Cleveland, but that's home. I'm sure your family's there. What would you say about a Cleveland or like a small, or that's not really a small town, but like,
Kind of is.
but like smaller towns in comparison to even now what Atlanta has become? Like, I know when we were coming up, it really wasn't a lot to do, but now you may find an event every day. Like,
Right.
there's always something, it seems
There's
like
always
boiling or
something.
bubbling in Atlanta.
Right.
So what would you say to like where you're originally from to a bigger market like Atlanta?
What's different, I guess, in like Cleveland and Atlanta. Like Cleveland, the kids are very bored as well, but they don't have outlets.
True.
I think Atlanta, because we're a major metro city, we have the outlets and different platforms to like get out of the city.
That's true.
So people from like middle America, like, because we travel a lot to places like Kansas City, St. Louis, and and there's a lot of creative like energy in all these cities, but they just don't have the resources and outlets like a Coach K, a P, I guess myself, Meezy, like they don't have DTP, like they don't have all of that.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
So it's kind of tougher, or excuse me, more tough. I don't know the proper word, but it's harder when you're in these like middle America places to break out because of there's no platforms, there's no outlets, there's no resources. Atlanta, we have that, even though we are still kind of like a low key. Well, we were a boring city at one point.
For
There's
sure.
a lot to do. You know?
For sure. So, let me ask you. Let's just go back to since the '80s and just explain what that is and like why you say that's like the primary focus right now.
Yeah, Since the 80s is technically a label, management, and publishing company.
Publishing, yeah.
So myself, Barry, and his partner Zeke, we all just came together really about a year ago. Barry was like, man, we got to start like just bossing up and like teaming up together because we're going to be stronger as a force. Because, we look at people like, Jason Jeter and G. Roberson, Al Branch, hip-hop since 1978. These people, banded together just to be bigger. And we just felt like it was the right time to do that for ourselves so that we could build more leverage really in the marketplace as far as hip-hop music and just in the South. And that's my main focus now because I feel like we have the opportunity to create something really great where we can, be mentioned along the So Defs and LaFace Records, Def Jam, DTP, where we can all kind of be talked about in the same sentence, QC, LVRN.
Right.
Like everybody's kind of like doing their own thing right now. So I thought that, the timing was right. And it's my main focus also because, it's great to have one superstar like 21 Savage. But, if you have more pieces on the chessboard, you're in better position.
Absolutely. I agree.
Not only for me, but also for him,
Yeah, I think a lot of what you do in terms of like, well, for those that are listening, obviously you are 21 Savage's manager. You really catapulted his career in terms of like these rollouts for the project. It's just like literally everything, a lot of the events, and we'll talk about that too. But I think that your focus, even you and Zeke, like with since the 80s, I'm not familiar with Barry Johnson, but like just the focus of like now it's more than just the music. Okay, you can have great music, but there's other things that have to be in place. So having a company that has like, I guess, that lens changes that.
Yeah,
and I do think it's a great time too, by the way. Like QC obviously is doing what they're doing. And a lot of like boutique labels are coming out of Atlanta, but y'all also are in conjunction, or it's like a joint venture with Capitol and Motown, right? So tell people what that means, I guess, exactly, and how it helps.
Capitol Motown for us is kind of like kind of the conduit between us and like the masses.
Gotcha.
Because they also have QC, so QC has their partnership with Capitol Motown as well. And it's really, it's a really smart position for labels to take as far as trying to beef up their numbers and try to like own more in the marketplace, because it's the managers like myself, Coach P, et cetera, that are really acting as the labels these days.
Right.
Like everything that we do for our artists is really from beginning to end. They're kind of like their backbone of their structure, right? Before they even get to a label. Exactly. So now, like for a label to bring on other smaller labels is kind of, it's almost like having on the ground A&Rs, right? Because labels don't really have the infrastructure anymore or the time and resources, and they don't want to spend a bunch of money hiring a bunch of staff. So it's smart to be like, okay, let me take a QC and put them in a position to grow their brand up under our brand, under their umbrella.
An umbrella,
what I mean?
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
so that's pretty much what they are to us. They provide funding, resources, a bigger platform for us to get our artists out and about.
Why since the 80s, the name?
I'm not gonna be honest. Like, I'm not gonna
be honest.
I'm not gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. So our original name was Quiet Riot.
Okay.
Which is the name of a band from back in the 80s. That I just thought was a dope name, but obviously they had everything trademarked, so you couldn't use it in any other entertainment usage. So we were literally like just coming up with names for like months. Like it might have taken like 3 or 4 months. And mind you, we had already started getting going on our deal.
Right,
so we were just like, shit, we don't even have a label name right now. And one day I just wrote down since the 80s, and Barry was like, actually fuck with that. And so it's kind of just been it since then.
Yeah, I've seen it, like just around, like it's starting to pop up, and it seemed like, I guess talk about the process, because people just assume that things just happen and you just get this deal and then like, oh, now all of a sudden you have a label.
Right.
What was the process behind this? How long was it taking you guys to really, or did it happen overnight?
Honestly, like, so I actually had a label deal for Quiet Riot under Cinematic Music Group, which is Johnny Shipe's company. Johnny was like, yo, I fuck with you, I believe in you. Can you consult for my company, and I'll give you the opportunity to launch your label. This was 2014 or 2015, right when I had gotten Savage, and I still had Key at the time, Fat Man Key.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a thing since then. But then I kind of let it go because I had to focus on Savage, because his career was like really starting to bubble really quickly. So it was like, I need to focus solely on this guy, because this is like, this is a big opportunity for me to be a part of something really special. So let me focus on Savage. So I kind of just let it go to the wayside. And then Barry hit me up last year, like, yo, whatever happened with your label, what we doing? And that's when the whole conversation came up of, we need to band together. Why don't we do label management and publishing? We'll just put our rosters together and it'll just be that much more fire. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what we did. And that was, I think, February of last year that we kind of opened up conversations. At first we were talking to Sony Red or The Orchard, about being our distribution or joint venture partner. And then we went to Ethiopia at Capital Motown. And she was with it. She was like, let's do it and let's just figure it out. And the process went from March, and then we signed like literally in December.
Wow.
So it was that long of a process just to get the paperwork right.
Right.
Which is all a headache to me, because I don't like paperwork. I don't like dealing with all of that. I just want to get to the marketing and the music.
Right.
And now we're in July, and we haven't officially launched yet.
Yeah.
Like our official launch is going to be September, but it's a lot of planning.
It's a buzz around it though, and people know, what it is and what it could, or what it has the potential to be.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I've been trying to just do like small press here and there, and like mention it on my photos and little shit like that, because I guess people follow me.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So it's just like, I just been doing little things to like get the name out there, but we're going to go hard starting in September.
That's dope. I'm excited for you guys, and congrats on that.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to seeing, what's to come from that. You and I actually share a very similar journey in terms of like how you started in the music and entertainment business, with our love for lifestyle blogging, to event promotions early on in your career. While in college, how did you imagine, because you attended Elon University, right?
Right, yep.
And I guess, like, while in college, how did you imagine your life being right now? Like, what were you telling yourself you wanted to do then? Where did you want to be?
It's funny. In college, I guess I had a lot of cool, unique opportunities to kind of get my feet wet in what I'm doing now, because we had a studio at the school that was in the communications building, and I was a communication major, so I would run the studio pretty much and like have my friends come through, record. So I actually used to engineer.
Oh, wow.
In college, but I don't really talk about much because I don't remember shit about it. And it's a very like serious job, but I used to engineer for a lot of kids. And then me and some of my friends actually started the label. It was me, my boy John, who's from Queens, New York, and then Dominic, who's from DC, Maryland, Virginia. I think he's from Maryland. But we started this label called, and Kasim, he was from North Carolina. We started this label called So Official. It was like, it's supposed to be like it was some whack shit. But at the time, it was cool because we had like niggas coming through dropping like mixtapes, and like I was learning Photoshop, doing mixtape art, and then I started doing parties on our campus because I went to a really small school, and it was majority white. So it was like 12% black.
Oh, okay.
So it was very easy to be popping there.
Right.
So we started doing parties, and our parties would get popping. And then we would go to North Carolina A&T, which was like 20 minutes down the street, and kind of partner up with some of the promoters there.
Right.
One promoter ended up being 2 Chainz DJ Eastside.
For real?
Yeah, but Eastside used to throw like the craziest parties on A&T's campus, and we built a relationship just on some like, yo, I'm doing shit at Elon, you can send some students up here and vice versa, you know what I mean? So we kind of like established this little network of just people doing shit in the music business at the time. But I didn't know that I was going to be a manager. I thought I was going to be a journalist. I was very, very serious about being a writer. I ran the newspaper at Elon. And even in high school, I was running the yearbook. So I was always just somehow tied to journalism.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that I was going to be a manager until somebody asked me to be a manager.
Wow.
You know, so
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of like, no, I don't know many people that are like, I am going to grow up and I'm going to be a music
right.
You know,
well,
it's kinda
kids
like
now
kids
do.
now, but
yeah.
when we were, coming up, it was just
I didn't even know what that was, really.
Yeah, it's just something might have been thrown on you, right?
Yeah, really.
So why do you think, or how was schooling important, if it was an important part of your process? Obviously, you met a lot of people, your network was growing through that. Do you use things that you learned in school?
Oh, absolutely.
Having that dual degree in mass comm and journalism, like, how can you apply that to what you're doing now?
Honestly, a lot of what I learned in college, just being a writer and being a blogger, helped at the time, like, launch the artists that I was working with, because blogs actually mattered at a certain time. So I was coming up in an era.
They don't now?
They don't as much.
Okay.
They still kind of do. Some do. I don't think all of them matter anymore because they just, lost the sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I was coming up in a time where blogs mattered and that visibility really meant something.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was like freelancing for different platforms like Complex, All Hip Hop, The Source, I think there was one called Ozone Magazine. Like, I was working for all of these different platforms, so we had another network of other bloggers and journalists.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started managing, I kept contact with people. So it was like, yo, so-and-so from All Hip Hop, I'm working with this artist, post this on the site, and it would get up. And that's kind of like how it started, the early days of like 2-9,
right?
Really starting to take off, and Key, and when I was working with Grip and Saya, and I've worked with so many artists, but that knowledge of like writing and being a journalist like really helped me get my artists beyond Atlanta. You know what I mean?
Dope.
Which at the time meant everything, because
Absolutely.
at a certain point, niggas didn't respect you if you didn't pop somewhere else in Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like, if New York didn't respect you, Atlanta was like, nah, that nigga whack. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
But now it's a little different because there's niggas like Savage who have like a street rep.
Mm-hmm.
So Atlanta, he had the Atlanta respect, and then he got respect from elsewhere. So it was like, okay, this is a viable crossover mainstream artist.
But I only feel like that happens when it is a street artist, because like, I mean, if you are claiming that you're an artist coming from the streets and the streets don't respect you, then obviously like nobody else. But when you're like not to say like
a hipster,
or like
whatever the
like,
word is,
whatever the like the SoundCloud like wave or whatever, you have to get like a wave on the internet.
Right. I think the only artist that may be kind of different for is Yachty.
True.
Whereas he's not necessarily street, but he had a reputation. Like, kids knew him from whether it be SoundCloud, Twitter, or Instagram, just being out and about. He had like a reputation in Atlanta. So when he popped off, it was like interesting to watch, because it was like, yo, he's kind of internet, but people know him in Atlanta.
Atlanta, exactly.
Which is very hard to achieve organically.
It's very true.
Yeah, so I think he's one of the special circumstances on that one.
So I saw on your Twitter, I went searching on Twitter, and I actually enjoy your Twitter, so I followed you. But
my Twitter's a mess.
Your Twitter is great.
Right now it's in shambles.
You got a lot of good retweets there, some things. So I saw something of you retweeting a bunch of tweets discussing like paid and unpaid internships.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know how that discussion came about. I was kind of in like a downward, when you start going
digging
on the internet.
You get lost.
I got so lost. So I'm not sure like how this came about or why the discussion started. But I can probably assume your feelings toward interning. How do you think that young people, especially in the entertainment and music business, benefit from working for free?
Yeah, I'm glad that you said entertainment business and like the music industry, because in this industry you have to work for free. Like there's just no getting around it because you have to prove yourself. There's so many people that do what we do. And the only way to really weed out or filter who's really serious and can really go to that next level is from working for free, because you can't afford to pay everybody, because everybody's working. Everybody wants to work in entertainment. Everybody raps. Everybody's a fucking manager. Everything. Like, it's fucking annoying.
It is.
So it's very overload. So it's like, if you don't work for free, how am I going to know that you are worth getting paid to work
you're valuable.
For me? You know, you're valuable. Other industries, I get it. Like, I know friends that are, majored in engineering. Their internships are paid.
Right.
That's because it's a real job. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is something anybody can do. Mm-hmm. Literally. Like, you don't have to go to school for this. You don't have to be, like, super, super smart to figure out how to manage an artist. So it's just very different. But the tweet came about from this kid. He was just like, I feel like, corporations are taking advantage of free labor, and, interns should be at least paid a minimum wage, and blah, 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 blah. I'm just like, what? No, they don't work like that. Like, it's not going to happen.
I've had my fair share.
People my age agreed. But most people younger than me are just like, nah, fuck that. You need to get paid. It's like, all right, good luck to you.
Good luck.
And this business is not happening.
I mean, I even see it because, like, okay, I had interned a lot prior to getting like my first real industry job. Mm-hmm. Some were paid, some were not, because of like corporate laws and things like that. So I think personally, but I see the value in like working for like nothing. Because even when I did get my first industry job, which happened to be here, I felt like, no, I was not getting paid a lot. Like I paid rent, but I was not.
You
getting
figured
paid
it out.
But I figured it out. But I think that was a valuable lesson, because like you said, anybody could have done my job here. It wasn't a hard job to do. They're not gonna pay me $20 an hour to do what I was doing. But I learned, and the network and everything else that I got from that experience was beyond like what I could have imagined had I been getting paid, more than that. And still to this day, I don't get paid a whole lot for doing my job. So I don't know.
You got to work your way up.
You have to
that's
work.
Just the nature of the business. Like,
you
don't start at the CEO. Yeah, in this business, you don't start as the boss or the CEO. Like, I've literally been managing artists since 2010. So it's 8 years. I didn't really start making money till like 4.5, maybe 5 years ago.
So, like, okay, I guess my question for you, because it seems like you've manifested a lot of things that have happened in your life, from starting a label in college, not really thinking that you were going to start a label, to now really actually
I didn't even realize that to this day. So you just asked me that. I was like, oh, shit, I used to run a label in college.
That's dope, though. Like, I mean, so you kind of manifested a lot of the things, or at least spoke those over your own life, and now you're seeing it actually happen. So talk about, I guess I want people to know that there was like a process in between all of this. So when you decided to manage the first artist, which would have been 2010, was that Kei and...
No, that was Grip Plies.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he came up to me at one of the parties that I was hosting and was like, yo, I think you should manage me, because these are the kind of people that should be listening to my music, and you know how to get them into a room. I was like, all right, cool, yeah. Like, let's sit down. I went to his son's birthday party like that weekend, or the next weekend or something like that. It was in November. Mm-hmm. And from there, we just started working. That was literally 10 years ago. His son was turning, I want to say 4 or 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, he's now like 15, 16.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's definitely rest in peace. And what, I guess just tell me, like, when you say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it, then what? Like, what did you actually start to do? Like, you didn't have a rule book or a manual?
Yeah, I had no clue really what I was doing. Obviously, I'd studied music or like the industry for a long time. Like, I really followed Diddy's career from like his day one into like where he is now. As a kid, like I really focused on what he did, but I didn't know what he really did.
Right.
Like, what do you do to manage an artist? So I just knew that, okay, he's an artist and he needs to make money. He needs to make money from his music. All right, let's get the music right. So we started working on a project. That was the first thing we did, which was Grip Hop. It was an incredible project. I wish I had like the CDs to this day, but we started working on the project and, finding different producers and producers he was already working with, and they knew producers. So it was just kind of like run and gun, figuring it out. His homeboy, whose name I wish I could remember, he had a studio in his basement. We just recorded out of there. I would sleep there some nights because he would sleep there. So I was just like, just being there, just being present was most of what I learned early days. Yeah, and I guess, we just figured it out. Once that project was done, it was like, okay, now we have a body of work. let's get it out to the masses. And that's when all the stuff I learned in college about blogging and being a writer and marketing. Like I put together a press release. I put together a website. At the time, MySpace mattered. And I designed his MySpace page. Like it was a lot of shit that I was just doing on my own. And then we did yeah, exactly. And then we did like a release event at Lenny's Bar, which is no longer there. That shit was packed. Like there was hundreds and hundreds of people there. And I just remember like, yo, this is really a big deal. And we documented that release party, and people in LA started to like hit me up like, yo, this guy's dope. And then we did a show in LA, and then next thing you know, we were doing a show in New York. So it was like
things started happening.
Things just started happening, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing.
That's dope.
But I didn't really think I knew what I was doing till Fat Man Key, because then we really started to see money from it. Because we were doing it with grit, but we weren't like making bread. Yeah, we weren't seeing profit. We were spending, but we weren't.
So what was
earning.
the difference between, moving toward working with Key? Like what would you say has shifted in terms of being or seeing like financial growth?
What had shifted or changed for me? I think because I had just learned the value in my artist, number one, and that we needed to charge for certain things, and that we just couldn't be moving around without nothing. Thankfully, at the time, though, I was working at Complex when I started working with Key.
Gotcha.
So I had my own monies to like put in here and there, like gas or like flights, whatever. I didn't do a whole lot of like investing, but I just learned the value of my artist. So it was like, okay, we're not doing free songs. It's $500 to get a verse from you. Shows, we're not doing free shows. It's $1,000 and it's $1,500, and then it became, $5,000, whatever. So I was just really like literally learning on my own, because I didn't have like a mentor or anybody I could call like, yo, how do I do this? It was really just like having to like fuck up really and make mistakes to figure it out.
That's dope. Yeah. And I was going to ask you, so Key opens doors. That's like your...
The moniker.
The moniker. It's on, your social media and everything, which I guess, like I started following you and I didn't really look at it like this until I was reading more into what you do. But so before going on to Manage 21 and diving, I guess, straight into the music industry as a manager, you spent that time in New York working with Complex, then on to 10 Deep, which are really huge, both very big brands. What were some of the best... Well, first off, how did you adapt to that city? Because it's a city that never sleeps. It's literally like grind mode 24/7 and party at night.
Right.
To meet people or whatever. So like how was that for you coming from like North Carolina to Atlanta, like these smaller markets? Well,
a part that I kind of skipped, I had an internship my third year at Elon at Complex. Okay. And at The Source the same summer. And I remember when I applied for those
you worked for both at the same time?
Yeah, so dope. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday was Complex. Thursday, Friday was The Source.
Got you. That's dope.
And I remember when I applied for those internships, I didn't know anybody in New York. My best friend at college that, I had the label with, who was from Queens, he's the only person I knew from New York.
Oh, wow.
And I had no idea how to get an internship. I literally went to the front of the magazine. This is a time where, shit was just way different. Went to the front of the magazine, and it had like the HR person's name. And I somehow came across her email. I don't even remember how I came across her email, but I got her email. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I got the internships, right? So this was a time where, niggas had to use maps. Like to get around New York. Like I had a Sidekick and I had a Nextel. Neither one of them shits had like Google Maps on it because Google Maps was not a thing. So I just literally had to just figure out the city on my own. And then obviously having a best friend there that summer, like it helped me. Him be like, yo, take the F train here, blah, 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 hop off there, and just figure it out. And, I figured it out. But I come from an era where you had to figure it out. Not that I'm old as shit, which is sad because these kids can't figure nothing out without a fucking phone.
Without your phone.
But...
We had MapQuest.
Yeah, we had MapQuest, but
that's it.
For the city of New York, that's like,
not
forget
helpful.
about it. It's not helpful at all. But I've always a person that traveled a lot.
True.
As a kid, like my mom and dad like always made sure I was moving around. My grandma worked at United Airlines. My aunt worked at United Airlines. So I always was traveling. So I knew how to like get around on my own. But New York was like, it's like a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother beast.
Definitely. I mean, like just learning that the subway in general is difficult enough.
Yeah.
I stayed by a G train and it didn't go nowhere.
Oh, yeah. I used to live by the G.
It didn't go nowhere.
Best
now
side.
It's different though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Best Star. So you worked at Complex in 21 Deep. when you 10 deep. Why did I put 21 deep? Because 21 Savage.
Yeah.
It's 21 deep. That's hilarious. Okay, so what were some of your best memories while in New York? Like, how did this part of your journey influence the way you move now in the industry? Because to me, in the city that never sleeps in New York, like, it's literally that. Like, you feel like you're, and I have a lot of friends that still live there. It's like it's nonstop.
All the time.
All the time. And
mainly because your apartments are so damn small.
That
you don't
true.
ever want to be in your crib.
It's no space. Like, I'd rather be outside.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, how did that part of your journey though, like, influence it beyond the internship? Like, once you actually started working in New York and like living in New York 24/7, how did that, I guess, help you move differently, if it did?
There was a lot of things that happened in New York that kind of like, I don't know, shaped where I am today, or just kind of like made me move differently. When I first got to New York as like an adult, not like interning in college, but like when I first got the job at Complex, the first circle of people that I met were all in like not different industries, but were all like making moves in their industry. So this one girl, Zarina Akers, became like a really good friend of mine. We hung out a lot. Now she's Beyonce's stylist.
Oh, wow.
This one girl, Ashley Kershaw, she was interning for Sycamore, at Sycamore's company at the time. I forget what the name of it was, but she was working for him. And obviously, you know, he was like a budding manager, A&R, whatever. She now works for Steve Stout, United Masters, and she manages a producer. So a lot of my network, like my main real fluff of it, came from New York. Some of the guys that I used to throw parties with, one guy, Carl Cherry, he obviously was Apple Music and now is at Spotify. So really, my base of my connections all came from New York. Even LMA's manager, Miko, he used to manage this kid, De Niro Ferrar, when I was working at 10 Deep. So at 10 Deep, I would seed them all the clothes. They would come through, holler at me every time when they were in New York. And now he's, you know, DJ Mustard's right-hand man and LMA's manager. So really is like just building my network is the strongest way possible that New York influenced my life. And when I was living in New York, I also DJ'd like on the side to make extra money because those jobs didn't pay a lot of money to live in New York anyway. So I DJ too, so I would like meet a lot of people from that, and a lot of people like in different worlds too, like Suicide Year and Sango, a lot of different like different ass people, Kate Trinata, a lot of these people I met while I was DJing. So it was like
it's like worldly music. It's just like a lot of different things going on in one space.
Yeah,
so you learn a lot.
I learned a whole lot, and I met a lot of people.
But ultimately, you came on back to the city.
I had to because Savage was like, "How you gonna be my manager? And you live in L.A." Because I moved to L.A. after New York.
Oh, you moved to L.A.?
Yeah, for like a year and a half with my girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
She was like a born and raised New Yorker and just over it.
She was like, I got.
Yeah, she's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll see if I can freelance for 10 Deep in L.A. and they let me do that. And I was managing Key, so I was making good money from Key at this point to where I could live on a freelance budget from 10 Deep. So it was like, all right, let's move to LA. That was the beginning of 2015.
Wow. So that's recent. Okay. That's dope.
Not that long ago.
So, so 21 Savage performed on Ellen, and that's a huge deal. I mean, it's Ellen. Yeah. I love her, by the way. And he performed Bank Account. What I love most about the performance was afterwards he explained what he was doing with the 21 Bank Account, like movement and for the youth to learn how to save and also just like building their own finances. And then beyond that, you've just been a great aid in like the success of your first mainstream artist in terms of his brand development and marketing. We know the music is good, and that's like the first thing with any artist. But
facts, yeah.
You help like catapult his career to marketing that rollout and everything to different levels. Like even with the block party y'all did down here, was it a block party? I can't remember. I just know we were out there.
Around here?
It was in Atlanta. I mean, it was just in Atlanta. It was like a back to school.
Oh yeah, the annual back to school drive. That's actually my business partner that coordinates that. Meezy. He's also from Stone Mountain, East Side.
Gotcha.
So a lot of, not to cut you off, but a lot of like what we do comes from really all three of us kind of sitting together and figuring out what's important to whom and why. Like the financial literacy program, it really came from Savage being like, I want to start giving back. You know, like there's a lot of niggas from Atlanta that blow up and they don't do nothing in the city. I want to be different. And so Meezy was already doing the back to school drives. And he was like, shit, let's attach you to the back to school drive. And so now it'll be the 3rd annual with Savage, but Meezy's been doing the back to school drive.
Period. Yeah. I got you.
Because he also is passionate about giving back to where he's from. The financial literacy thing was like, yo, I got all this money. You know, I got to start telling kids like, yo, it's not about the chains and the cars and shit. I want to do something. I was like, all right, why don't we do, we just started brainstorming. I think I was in New York. I was like, why don't we just create bank accounts for kids? And he liked the idea and then ran with it and started his own foundation and, you know, kept it going. But like a lot of like what catapults Savage is just the 3 of us literally moving as a unit and kind of being on the same page about a lot of shit, you know, because he'll have ideas and it's really just your job as the manager to make the ideas come to life.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, talk to us about, I mean, like, why is that piece, though, just, I mean, aside from the community part, which I think is very important because it's something different that, like 21 said, is that he's doing that a lot of other rappers may not, you know, think to do. And then also just his image being, like, the music that he's putting out, like, people wouldn't expect that from 21 Savage initially until he did it, you know what I mean? So why is that piece just like essential to having a successful artist or like project or, you know, when you're doing these things, like how all of this kind of aligns to the marketing piece too?
Yeah, I mean, a good piece of it is Savage is very, not necessarily adamant, but very strong-minded on not being like everybody else. Because there's a lot of street rappers out of Atlanta. A lot of trap niggas and a lot of them rapping about the same things. But one thing that's special about Savage is his story, what he's been through, like all the negativity and, you know, the fatalities in his life that he's seen a lot of people die. And, you know, you can't make that up. So it's the combination of just having that original story, not wanting to be like anybody else, and then me and Meezy just seeing that and seeing what we see in him, which is like, way bigger than what he started at. You know what I mean? Like when I met him, I was like, oh, okay. This is a cool kid with his knife on his head. He was very scary. I was like, oh, this is a real street nigga. Cause
how did y'all meet each other?
So Kei and Savage went to high school together at one point in time.
Okay.
And Kei was like, yo, I got this artist out of Atlanta, this nigga fire. He's just dope as fuck. Like he got this knife on his head and he's just like from the streets and he can rap his ass off. And I'm like, okay. So he sent me the one song that he had did, which was Picky, produced by DJ Plug. He sent me that and I was like, oh, this is actually a dope song. Because, you know, Kei, he's crazy. I don't know if you ever met Kei. If anybody's ever met Fat Man, he's sporadic, he's nuts, but he's a genius. So he told me about Savage. I was like, okay, cool. Why don't we bring him on tour? Because we were headed on tour for like 10-city tour or whatever that we set up, whatever. So we brought him on the road. And I was like, yo, this kid is like, like he was different from anything I'd ever seen before because I'm used to, you know, like the kind of crossover hipster rappers, you know, and I knew that he wasn't that.
At all, yeah.
So we brought him on the road. He performed. It was his first time doing like that kind of performance because he had done performances before, but mainly like, you know, Club Mansion and different clubs in the city or whatever. So it was a different experience, but the kids were going crazy for him. So after that, that's when we officially locked in. But what I saw in him just in those performances was like that kid had a lot of potential. Yeah. And there was a lot of pain in his voice. Like when he sent me all the songs for Slaughter Tape, I was like, yo, this nigga been through some shit. And I knew the only person that made me think that kind of like related to that was 50 Cent. And I'm a big 50 Cent fan. Like I got a 50 Cent tattoo right here.
What? What, his lyrics?
Yes.
What lyrics?
I can't even tell you.
Okay, I'll read it.
It's kind of embarrassing. I don't even want to put it out there. But like I was a really, really big 50 Cent fan. Like I studied the shit out of him. Once I heard who he was through my best friend in college, who's also from Queens, Southside Jamaica, Queens. He had been telling me about 50 in college, and then 50 blew up, and I was just watching his career. And the only person, and 50% was the only person that I looked at Savage like, yo, your story is a lot like him. Like you are supposed to be dead, and then you start dropping this amazing music. You know what I mean? And that's when I knew that he was something special because that wasn't happening. Like niggas was rapping about being rich and fucking hoes and niggas wasn't rapping about street shit when Savage started coming out with his music. Sorry, I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you did. Or you gave us, you know, what we needed, so it's fine. We'll get to it. We'll talk to us about brand development, though, because, I mean, you were literally there from the beginning for 21 and, like, a lot of your other artists that you've had success with just, like, managing them or just being a part of their projects and their rollouts and everything. what is it to develop a brand, but an artist? Because a brand is and I've talked about this on the podcast before, is a product. It's usually like a thing, like water.
Right.
But 21 Savage is not water. It's a person.
It kind of is water, though.
Okay.
I honestly look at him like a McDonald's or a Pepsi or a Nike or an Adidas. Like, I look at him like that. It's like literally like how he looks, how he dresses, how he speaks, the clothes he wears, you know. I already said how he dresses, but like literally everything about him is a piece of his brand. And my job is like brand development and like figuring out what's going to make him pop or what's going to make him special to other people is accentuating the things that are about him naturally. You know what I mean? And not because he's an organic brand. There's nothing that we built about Savage. Like, he just literally is himself. Like, he don't give a fuck. He literally talks very monotone. He's a very serious ass nigga. He'll sit in the room, but then he's also really funny. Yeah. And charismatic. That's when you'll see pieces like, you know, the Keith Sweat thing we did with Spotify. You'll get to see some of his personality come out. You know what I mean? So it's really just taking the things about him and accentuating it. You know, like, he's scary. So a lot of our merch would be like, you know, his face on shit that would scare the shit out of you because he's like a scary looking nigga. Yeah. But that is appealing. You know what I'm saying?
To a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. So I would just take those things and accentuate them. Like, you know, white hipsters love street shit. And I knew this, like, looking at thefader.com, is like, you knew
what was attractive,
what was appealing. You know, we premiered his first tape on the Fader. We premiered his first video on the Fader. And just knowing who the audience is, that's the first part about indie brand marketing, right? Is who am I actually marketing to? And kind of working backwards from there, you know what I mean? And just taking the natural pieces of his personality and who he is and making it bigger. That's all we really did.
Yeah, I guess I said he's not a product because he's a human. Right. You know, so, but, you know, a lot of other managers and like labels, you've heard like them trying to market someone based upon what they think of the person, whereas your situation is a lot different in that case, and you pretty much just explained that, like, really working with what you have. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we were just really lucky in that aspect that his natural self is just interesting. He's appealing. But there's some artists that aren't naturally appealing. You have to figure out, like, okay, what is it about this person that is going to attract the masses? Because you look at an Earth Gang or a JID or JID, they don't have tattoos on their faces. They're not super, super scary. But, like, what is it about them that people are going to be into? With Earth Gang, they're very eccentric. You know what I mean? But then you listen to their music and you're like, oh, shit, I get it. So it's like, all right, let me take that and just accentuate it. You know what I mean? Don't have to, like, recreate the wheel and, like, make up a story about being shot and all this other shit. Like, no. Yeah. It's not going to happen with every artist. So with Savage, he's just a special being in that he had this story and we just were able to run with it.
What are some of the challenges you face as the manager? Like, I mean, obviously you have to answer the harder questions and, like, be a part of those harder conversations, I'm sure. But what were some challenges, or do you not find them challenging? It's just like, what's next for you?
Well, now it's kind of what's next, and I look at it like the challenging pieces as a part of the job. But in the beginning, there's been times where I was like, yo, I might have to quit this shit. Like, I've cried over this job. I've quit several times. I remember being like, yo, Key is the last rapper I'm working with. And then I met Savage. And then I was like, Savage is the last rapper I'm working with. That's not true. Felipe. Yeah. And so it's like, it's going to be it's a frustrating job because it's personality management. One with the artist, but also with people that you have to work with on a day-to-day. And a lot of our job is just like dependent upon other people. So it's hurry up and wait. And I'm a control freak. So it's like when shit ain't moving, I'm just like, oh, I'm frustrated. So that's like a very super challenging piece of it. And then the other piece would just be the learning curve between like underground and mainstream. Like literally I learn something new every single day because we're just in the position to where we are right now. You know what I mean? Like we're in a higher level position where we're talking to film directors, we're talking to MGM, we're talking to Sony Pictures. Yeah, this is
super new for you. Yeah.
It's super new. Yeah, like it's literally, I've started all over again with my internship. Exactly. Except now I'm getting paid. But now it's even more vital that I don't fuck up. So now it's like, now I pick up the phone. I'm like, yo, Troy Carter, Coach P, what do you do when this happens? Right. Yo, Steve Stout, can you take a look at this deal? What do you, like, what is it missing? Are we charging enough? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Because now I'm at the level where I can just talk to these people on their level. You know what I'm saying? Which I'm very thankful for. But yeah, and the initial pieces of it is like, yo, this shit is hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like how do we generate more money for this young man?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make it so that touring and music isn't this only stream of income? Because that's like really what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, and that's literally a daily stress for me and Meezy. Like, yo, how do we make this man more money without sacrificing his brand, and without, just looking stupid?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Without compromising what it is that you're trying to do.
Right.
That's dope. It's a learning. It's all a learning experience. Every day you learn something.
Every day, man. Every day. But if you don't learn, you don't grow. So I'm thankful.
Absolutely. So you, or first off, let me ask you, why do you love your job? Because I know you said like you left and then, where you talked about quitting and then you kind of found yourself back here. Management is like glorified babysitting. And we know it's not the most glamorous job. You have to be very selfless to manage someone else's life and their career. But you seem to love what you do. So why do you love your job?
Honestly, because I've had jobs I didn't love. Mm-hmm. And I know what it's like to do something and be like, oh, this shit is awful. Mm-hmm. I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car coming out of college. Got fired from there. That was just a terrible-ass job. Career builder. I was like literally like calling people on the phone like, yo,
For
do
real?
you want to do that? Yeah, that shit sucked. I was like, yo, this is not my
What
life.
I'm trying to do, yeah.
This is not what I'm about. So I think going through all the things that I've like been through, and I've worked at like Gap, Finish Line, Kroger. I've been working since I was 15, so I've had some shitty jobs. And this one, it's not that bad.
Yeah. You're like, it's
pretty cool. Yeah, I can start work when I want to. Usually I try to be working by 10, 11. I get to stay up late in the studio with the creative people. Because I also like really love music too. Like that's a part of it.
Who's like one of your, besides 50, we heard 50.
Besides 50.
Besides 50, who's like one of your favorite like artists of, I won't give you the all time questions, but if you could name like one of your favorite artists just off top.
Lil Wayne. I was heavily inspired by Lil Wayne. I think he might have been the first CD I bought with my own money. I've really been big on like R&B my whole life.
Yeah, I feel like you give me R&B vibes. What's the good?
I love R&B. I don't even listen to rap. That's the funniest part about it. Like right now in today's age, like I might listen to like 10% rap, 90% R&B.
Yeah. So what's some new R&B that you love?
There's this kid, I think his name is Kyle Brown or Kyle Dion.
Yeah, put a song.
I don't even know where bro is from, but he's got this song called Brown. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. Trevor Jackson.
Of course.
Although I didn't want to give him a chance at first. I'm like, oh, he's a pretty boy. He's probably going to be whack, blah, blah, blah.
He's really good, actually.
He's actually really incredible. Yeah, like I listen to his music a lot. Obviously, Ella Mai, I think she's dope. I've got an R&B singer I'm working with named Azion, formerly Asia Bryant. Okay. She's incredible. Everything on the chilled R&B playlist on Spotify is like that's hitting right now. You know, what I mean? 7th Streeter, I love her. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can go for days
on for R&B. Yeah,
well, there's some new rappers I like too. Like I loved XXX. I think that he was very, very talented. Lil Peep was actually dope too.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think they're dope because I grew up literally listening to a lot of rock music. And their music reminds me of what I grew up on.
Very reminiscent of that.
It's very reminiscent, yeah.
For sure. So talk about staying ahead of the trends. You have kind of like coined knack, or said that you have like a knack for trend forecasting. Why is it important to do that? Obviously, staying ahead of the trend. And then how do you go about predicting what's next? Like how can you be like a trend forecaster?
I think that's one of those things. I don't even know if I said that. Where you read that from?
Girl, your bio, girl. That's what you said.
I ain't write that bio.
Whoever it is believes that I'm good at forecast trends, though.
That's
and
possible.
I think that it is pretty possible. Just, obviously working with someone like Grip early on, people who are not familiar with Grip has really amazing.
Or like Kei. Kei was always ahead of his time.
Very ahead of his time. What they were doing for sure. So
I think it's really one of those kind of like it sounds lame as hell, but like a natural gift.
That ain't lame. That's facts.
Yeah, either you have it or you don't. It's like a lot of people that can work in fashion. That they're trend forecasters. They know what's going to be hot next. Like Scott Sasso from 10 Deep would always have something, and then I would see like a high-end brand do it like months later, like, yo, what the fuck? But he would just always be very ahead of what was going on, and that's just like a natural thing.
Just like being able to look into the future, essentially. Or just
looking
being
in the
able
future
to
and just kind of paying attention.
Trend.
Yeah, set your own trend and kind of paying attention to what people are gravitating towards and they're repelling against. You know?
Do you think that's like I guess a game of like fail or like trial and error?
A little bit. I think it's a little trial and error.
True.
But it's also just knowing what's hot, like just having a high standard for quality.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to get back to 21 because my little sister is like super. She loves 21 Savage, and I was
Most little girls love 21 Savage.
She lives in NorCal. She's coming to Atlanta actually for school, but she lives in Sacramento, Elk Grove area, small community, very mixed community. And I'm sure all of her friends are very interested in or love his music as well. How have you guys been able to like flip that image though? Like, cause that's my main thing. Like, okay, he has this tattoo on his face. I know what he raps about. I get it. I'm from here. Like, I know a lot of, the people he probably grew up around. So I understand. But like to see my sister like, yo, you were with twin. I just didn't understand. Like, how can you relate to this? You have no idea.
Well, that's the thing is none of them really can relate. They're just living vicariously through
it.
Like being from the suburbs, like I can speak on that firsthand. I always loved gangster rap, like Tupac, 50. Like the worse it was, the more I liked it.
True.
Right, because it's a rebellion, and that's just what being between the ages of like 10 and 18 is about. Is like not doing what your parents want you to do.
Facts.
And I think that's why Savage is so appealing, because it's just like, yo, this man is just literally balls to the wall. He don't give a fuck. Like, he got a knife between his face.
Okay, so like for me, seeing that, when he was first bubbling, and then to see him now, like you would have imagined like something really just tragic could have happened, like a Tupac or like anything could have happened. And I don't wish that on anyone, but that's what people would assume.
That's what people thought was going to happen.
But you guys have been able to flip the image with your events and like the messaging. And that's, now that I'm talking to you, is not just you or like his team doing that. That's him as well. Being able to like be in the front of the industry as a street rapper. Like that wasn't happening. Yeah,
it wasn't happening. Because there's been street rappers, but then it's not many have made it to this point, I don't think. I think a lot of it just comes from, like I said, Savage not wanting to be like anyone else, but also recognizing that he's been given a second chance at life.
True.
And to take the best advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Like he stays out of all the bullshit. Like when I tell you we go to a show, do the show, and get the fuck on, that's what we do. If it's a city where it might be some shit go down, he's like, we gotta go home. Because I don't want nothing happening to me, because, he's in a special position.
Right.
Taking care of his family. Like that's...
What do you want to do?
That's what he wanted to do.
Facts. What would you say, or like any advice to indie artists that are trying to break into the business, who may have a similar story? They're like coming up, or even as a manager who has an indie artist, and you're trying to just get them to that next point, even if they're not like looking for a deal or anything, but just they're trying to get the music out there. There's so much music. You even said that earlier. Like, everybody wants to be an artist.
I'm telling everybody to not do music right now. That's my best piece of advice. Stop making music.
Where should they be going?
Fucking school to be engineers and doctors and architects. The stuff that we actually need.
Doctors, yeah, sure.
I'm just kidding. I'm really not kidding.
She's not kidding.
I'm so serious. I'm tired of rappers. Everybody just makes music. Like, all my cousins make music. It's just like, yo, none of y'all want to be a doctor? None? I'm just confused. When I was growing up, I wanted to be an architect. I might still go be an architect, to be honest with you.
Really?
Like in 10 years, I'm going to probably be an architect. I'm going to start school, and then I'm going to start building homes out of nowhere. Niggas going to be like, what?
When did she start doing that?
Like, what? Exactly. My best piece of advice, honestly, though, is just make sure you're passionate about whatever you're doing. If you're a manager, make sure you're passionate about the artist's music and their lives and seeing them go from one point to the next, because that's really what it's about. When I met Savage, I wanted him to get out of what he was living in. And that passion drove me waking up every day to continue to do my job, and it still does. Even though he's successful, it's like, all right, how do we get more successful?
Right.
If you're an artist trying to break through and get your music out there, it's really hard right now because everybody makes music. But just make sure you have something special and that you have a strategy. You know where your fans are consuming music. You know where your fans are going to party. You know what your fans are wearing. You know what social platform is your fans' favorite. Because all of that is going to help you to market your music better and reach those people on another kind of level. Look at this lame man. Shout out to Oz, man. Oz been doing this a long time too. My flyer passing out days, I knew Oz.
For real?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
He was doing shit at Apache, and nigga was everywhere.
So let me ask you why you're the person for the job.
Oh, I don't think I'm the person for the job.
What? What you are?
Right now? Mainly because I don't really care about the money. I mean, that sounds probably really crazy to a lot of people. But money doesn't even exist. It's not real. It was created to separate us. So I really am just driven on seeing people happy and not being in like a down position. Because I come from, even though I was raised in the suburbs, my whole family's not from the suburbs. Like I'm come from very humble beginnings. So it's nice to see people go from humble beginnings to 21 Savage.
Absolutely.
Or,
success.
Success, right?
Absolutely. So I noticed a tweet about your sleeping patterns.
Oh, so messed
the lack
up.
thereof. It doesn't seem like you get much rest, or maybe you're just restless. Because I know a lot of creative people deal with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
How are you balancing like your personal life and business? And explain.
I suck at it.
Because I'm like, you have, these are your cousins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cousins, your little cousins with you, and you were just talking about how you could have really just been at home, sleep, but you got to, be active, spend some time with your family.
Yeah, wow. I'm learning now how important it is to have that like personal life and work life balance. Mm-hmm. I think because I had worked for this to like be at this stage for so long, I can never just sit still. Mm-hmm. So I'm always trying to do something, but now I'm learning to just like put my phone down, watch a Netflix movie, or
it's hard.
Read a book. Yeah, like go get a massage. Yeah, go work out. Yeah, and just do stuff more for me. Yeah, which I'm just not used to doing, but I'm just forcing it upon myself.
Absolutely, I agree. And explain the value of your time, being a manager, like you're working 24/7. So what time is very of the essence.
Very valuable. Yeah, like I hate when people waste my time or think that I just have an abundance of time. That's also pretty annoying. What was
just like explaining the value of time for you, being like on the clock 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Time is everything right now, because if I'm spending time doing this or doing that, or whatever it is, I could be spending time for myself or progressing in my career. So it's like you really have to be cautious when you approach a manager and just be respectful of their time, because like literally, like I don't lie when I say every day I wake up thinking about my artist and then I think about me. Some days I'm now starting to be like, all right, let me think about me and then think about my artist, because you just want to be on point, especially when it comes to accelerating someone else's career, because it's really their livelihood. It's like, it's not a game. Like, I think a lot of people think that, I'll be a manager and just manage somebody. Like, no, this is like someone's life.
Absolutely.
That's in your hands, you know what I mean? And Savage could be doing a myriad of other things if he wanted to be, but he chose to do this, and this is what's taking care of his family, so let's not drop the ball. What can we do to make sure he's staying
continues to do that
there? Same with any other artist I work with. It's their life. It's the choice they made. So,
what are you really excited for right now?
I'm really excited for this new kid I'm working with, Felipe, who is from Lithonia. He reminds me of like the early days of me hearing T.I., where T.I. would have really great hooks, like catchy hooks, but was really saying some shit in his lyrics. Like he's very lyrical, but also makes really catchy, fun hooks. So I'm really excited for him.
Dope.
And I'm excited for the whole label in general. We've got some really dope artists that we're working with.
Since the 80s.
Since the 80s.
Dope.
Yep.
Let me ask you, so how will you continue to educate people and navigating through this business? We appreciate you sitting on the podcast, by the way, sure. Being able to extend that time to us, and all of the listeners and viewers who are watching. This is education here, and I've seen you on panels to, just like even your advice on be it social media or whatever. Also, I guess let me rewind before I ask you that. When I asked you, why are you the person for the job, I asked because I've seen you in action. I think the first time that I met you was, I told you off the record, but the first time I met you was at 21 Savage's performance at Clark's Homecoming. And you're like focused. It's not like how sometimes you approach people and they just don't seem approachable. It's not that. You're just like working.
I'm doing this at the moment. Yeah. That's just my demeanor. I think people usually say I'm unapproachable, mostly because I am.
You weren't unapproachable though. Like that's what I didn't get, because I was kind of you just kind of imagine that people were like, especially if they're working, like maybe not the right time.
I don't be bothered.
Yeah, but you were happy. It's just you were focused.
Yeah, I just have a really cool demeanor, so that's why I think people, once they actually talk to me, they're like, "Oh, you're not so scary." Yeah, I'm not.
I'm not at all.
I'm just working right now.
Right, I'm busy. Right. But no. So let me ask how you'll continue to educate people and like navigating through this business?
Yeah, it's things like this that I don't really do for myself. I do for other people. Because like I said, coming up in the music industry, I didn't have a mentor or anybody that I could call. So I'd like to kind of be that person, whether it be through a podcast or a panel or Twitter, Instagram, DM, email, whatever it is. I just like to be, open to responding to people. Because I know when I was coming up, I would have loved to ask, so many people questions about navigating through the business industry. But, I either was scared that I wouldn't get a response, or I just actually literally wouldn't get a response. So I kind of had to figure it out. So, yeah, doing stuff like this is not really for me. It's for other people.
For other people. So I think it's important to also see women putting a dent in the business, like with your success, especially after we saw Ethiopia, and I'm not going to mess up her last name, Sylvia Rome and Julia Jones, discuss being female music execs via Billboard. That was a really big thing, and a lot of women were excited about it, especially in our business. So do you think or have you, while through your journey and your process, have you had any challenges like earning the respect of men in the room or in the business, or have you been pretty good at kind of taking on that space?
I think I've been pretty good at taking on that space, just because I'm in a different or special kind of disposition where, I live an alternative lifestyle, being a lesbian, and then I'm a Black woman, but I was raised in the suburbs, so I'm like, in a room full of white people, I'm speaking white people very fluently. In a room full of men, I still can be a lady and they can be comfortable speaking with me. And in a room full of Black women, I'm not intimidating. So I kind of have that special disposition of just being who I am, where I haven't really faced a whole bunch of challenges thus far. Like I said, the only challenges is just the learning curve and kind of like talking to people at a different level. But, it's not anything that I can't handle, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So I guess my last question for you is like you said you could see yourself being an architect in the next 10 years. So there's that.
Yep.
But like if you had it your way, and we know that things kind of happen the way they're supposed to in our lives, especially being from college where you thought you were going to be a journalist to now managing a really big artist, to starting your own label since the 80s. But if you could, right now, based upon what you're doing right now, what would you say in the next 3 to 5 years where these things will be?
The next 3 to 5, let's see, we're in 2018. I think in the next 3 to 5 years we'll be, considered one of the premier best boutique labels in existence. Mainly because, we're a label run by managers. And it takes a special person to be a manager. It's a very selfless person to be a manager. So I think that our label will be very much talked about. We'll probably see a Billboard cover, hopefully, God willing. And just a roster of new artists that are just, killing it. Because, one thing we want to do is make history. It's not really about making a bunch of money. We want to make history. And I think, Savage kind of helped open that door for me in making history, because I think that he's going to be talked about, for years to come, because he is this special being who's like this street nigga who is now like this role model. And I just want to continue to have a roster of people like that are going to be talked about for several years.
Absolutely. I wish much success to Since the 80s, as well as your artists that you're working with now, and then just what you got going. Maybe you can find a little balance and get some time in for yourself.
I hope so, man. Yeah, I figured it out.
Yeah, so tell them where they can find you on social media and how they can get in touch with you if need be.
Yes, it's Kei Opens Doors on everything. It's KEI Opens Doors. That's Twitter, Instagram. Our website coming soon is since the80s.com. 80s is 80s. And yeah, you can email me. Most of my information is in my bio. You can actually text me too. Sometimes I'll respond. Not always. I can't promise that.
You can't promise that.
I can't promise that.
Well, we appreciate you sitting down with us so much. And like I said, I wish you the best and much success to you in your future ventures.
I appreciate it.
And as always, you guys can follow the podcast, IDM Podcast, on Instagram, as well as myself, Sammy Approved, on all social media platforms. And we look forward to talking to y'all soon.
Appreciate it.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thanks.